The London Design Biennale started with a conversation with Jonathan Reiki, who is the director of Somerset House. We wanted something which was a true biennale, which involved countries and cities and territories from everywhere in the world.
The purpose of the Biennale is to have a borderless arena for design countries and nations to speak to each other and bring those ideas to the centre of London in response to a theme that we set, and this year's theme was set by our Artistic Director Es Devlin.
The London Design Biennale is a new design festival. It's only been going for a number of editions. It's determining its own identity, and this year it's all going to be about design for change.
This year's theme is resonance.
If you look up resonance in the dictionary, it gives you a number of different meanings. A good theme does give scope to participants to respond in a variety of ways.
The idea of resonance obviously can take a sort of sonic form, but it's also a philosophical idea of resonance and the ripple effect that all our decisions have continuing effects around ourselves and around our countries and around the world.
It's very ambitious because what we believe is that design is an international language which everyone understands. And we're very, very interested in the way in which you can bring people together from different countries, from cities, from different territories, to have a conversation through design about the things that really are important in life. And there is a kind of very serious side to this because design can solve some of the world's biggest problems.
There is a feedback loop between us and the things we design. We design systems and objects and they redesign us.
The fantastic thing about the centrepiece for this year's Biennale, which is Forest for Change, created for Project Everyone, who promote the 17 UN Sustainability Goals, is it works on so many different levels. It's in the space, in this great 18th century building. There was a prohibition actually against having any greenery within the footprint of the building, and that was a total provocation to Es Devlin, our artistic director, designer of the Forest for Change, when she conceived of the idea.
Es responded to what she saw as a rather kind of authoritarian view about Palladian principles from Sir William Chambers, who was the original architect, which actually forbade anything green and living in this space, because in his view it contravened those purist architectural principles.
Once I heard that, my spirit of rebellion immediately determined that we must fill this with a forest.
But it's also much more than a simple breaking of the rules. It also highlights the fact that we know now that it's not man over all things and man as the measure of all things. It is man needing to live with nature, or else we're in very serious trouble.
Having the idea to place a forest within Somerset House is one thing. Carrying it out successfully is a completely different story. The design, consideration of which trees would work, how to get the trees in through that archway over here on the side of a flatbed truck, how to look after the trees, how to make sure the trees go to good homes.
This is the first time in its entire history that you've seen anything green.
As you walk through the forest and you hear the bird song, you smell the scent of the trees and the paths, and you feel the change in your body. It's also a very visceral demonstration of how both design and nature can change the way we think about things. And that's even before you come to the UN Sustainability Goals in the centre.
I want the climate crisis to be more widely acknowledged and for sustainable action to
I
be
want to
implemented.
live in a world where all women and girls can live free from the fear of violence.
I want humans to stop killing and eating animals.
I would like to see a world where Indigenous voices are valued and considered at high-level political forums.
You can see them, sign up to them, stake your claim, and I think many people will leave now having a good idea of what those are and where their particular sentiments and the things that they want to do to change things.
Designers by definition are innovators, they're creatives, and I think when you twin that with progressive values, you see what you've got around you.
The most important thing that all the designers who've made these 38 exhibitions that I hope you'll come and have a look at have brought is an attitude towards parameters, right? As designers, you're set with parameters and you're told you have this much space, you have this much time, you have this much money. But what we're not told is the Earth's parameter.
When you get together people from 30, 40, 50 parts of the world and they start talking to each other, then you can really see some magical things happening. And that's happened in both the first and the second Biennales, and it really is happening brilliantly in this one.
The Biennale is always really about ideas. So, for example, issues such as the wasteful and environmentally costly way we build our buildings. So we have in Poland and in Canada this year, we have two sides of the same story. We have how air conditioning being brought into buildings is very detrimental to the environment, and we have the Polish pavilion that looks at how the draping of fabrics was the traditional way of dealing with that, and continues to be something that we can consider going forward when we live more in harmony with nature.
Outside the people like cars are still running, when inside it's safe to deny that it's coming.
Beatty Wolf, from now from California, but actually UK-born singer-songwriter, has brought us a really lovely piece that is in the guise of a very simple sort of music video, lovely song and lovely visuals. But what is woven into that with her work with NASA is the data on carbon emissions. I would say that pre-pandemic climate crisis was clearly one of the things foremost in people's minds, but something has happened over the last year and things won't be the same again. It feels to me like a watershed moment where people have realised that things have to change, but not only that, they've also seen glaring examples of how things can change.
We've seen with COVID, everybody around the planet washed their hands and put on a mask. Simple actions that everybody could do, everybody did them overnight. Look at the change.
We've also found ways to spend extraordinary amounts of money to face the pandemic. So I think that has really given us a sort of inspiration for what can now take place.
And if we could do that on each of these issues, imagine the change we could enact.
I feel we now think collectively that we can actually address them. I love the Germany installation. It's so beautiful, beautifully presented display called Spoon Archaeology. The rows and rows of plastic cutlery are laid out in a kind of museum-style anthropological display. And the concept is around the banning of plastic cutlery, which is taking place in the EU in 2021. And the conceit is sort of, how will we view these objects from the future? Looking back, what will we think about them? It's very clever, rather beautiful, and very of the moment at the same time.
In view of the climate change, could you help us with that, with an answer? Thank you.
I think after a very digital year for most of us, we're really pleased to see the physical, but we're also rather interested to see the kind of non-digital, where things are actually just a physical installation. One spectacular example is Latvia, which is predicated on the idea of the Latvian introvert and also their great literary tradition. It's a beautiful piece, beautifully designed, very intriguing, and you speak into a trumpet, and then a few moments later, out of a tiny little drawer, which comes out, and there is the answer to your secret or your problem or whatever question that you've posed.
And learn not to exist at moments when it's not necessary.
When you go around the back, of course, there is somebody in the box. There's no tricks there. There is someone there who is coming up with the answer to your question and putting it in a little drawer and putting it out. It's got a very nice feel. It's been enormously popular with the public. It's just lovely. Your immediate environment has so much impact on what you think is possible. In Chile, for example, you walk into the installation and there are these enormous pieces of stone which the audience can play, rather like playing a xylophone. And the amazing thing is they all make different sounds, and there are ones that have got grooves in and you can rub the gong against them and you get this sort of resonant sound. So there it is, working on a very basic level. It's fun to do, and you think, gosh, I didn't know stones could make so many different sounds. But then beyond that, it's talking about the geological nature of Chile, the importance of natural resources, the mining industry, and many things that are interesting for them from a national point of view, but also for an international audience. Quite hard to sort of keep thinking out into a more sort of global world. But that, I think, also is interesting in terms of the themes that we're dealing with. I think if you take something like the echo chamber, the Finland pavilion, in that installation, you get the opportunity to sit down with a complete stranger and hopefully, as I believe, find that on the whole you have more in common than what separates you. I mean, that's a really nice example that not only takes a sort of big issue that we all very aware of, how people are only talking to the same sort of people as they are and getting into small worlds, but also this idea of isolation. Many of us have been living in semi-isolation, if not complete isolation, for parts of the last year. And it's brought all kinds of things forward in how you deal with that, and how we connect with each other, those closest to us, those more distant, and then with other completely different people. Venezuela, I think, is one of our most intriguing installations. The story is really the decline and fall of the Venezuelan economy, and the fact that now millions of Venezuelans have been forced to live overseas. And that has come about because of their dependence on a single product, which is oil. And it's a critique. The whole installation is a critique of that. It takes the avocado stone not as a serious alternative to oil. It's not saying, if only we'd done it with avocado stones, we'd be okay. It's using the avocado stone as a metaphor for other ways of doing things. I think it's really clever. There's loads in it. There's actually loads that's textual as well that you can read. But I knew nothing about the story before I saw the installation, and it's really encouraged me to find out more. And that's obviously the point of lots of the things we do here. One of the things you feel going round in Somerset House, one pavilion necessarily leads on to another, and they can be completely different. take an example, you're in Antarctica, you're surrounded by 3 walls of visuals that are augmented visuals taken on an expedition to Antarctica, but that have been enhanced with digital information that looks at real film of the splintering of the Larsen B ice shelf, but also at how that will change over time. And a very moving, rather contemplative soundscape. It's quite relaxing, even though that's living in troubled times as well. But you go from that into the Israel pavilion, the boiler room, where the sound is completely different. It's people, it's a cacophony of rather argumentative people who are adversarially talking on the whole about the issues. The boiler room has social media hashtags on either side, and you can switch them on and off to show how easy it is to sort of sign up to something, perhaps without even thinking about it. And then when you walk through the centre, the soundtrack is connected with the things that you've turned on and off, and you hear politicians, government ministers, newspaper people, interviewees talking and saying with single soundbite lines that relate to the issue that you've signed up to or slammed down.
America is governed by Americans. We reject the ideology of globalism, and we embrace the doctrine of patriotism.
How dare you? People are suffering. People are dying.
You know, this ecological bullshit, like, did you recycle the paper? Did you throw all the newspapers aside? This is to make us feel good.
The vaccine is safe, it's effective, it's free.
We're standing here on the River Terrace, and behind me is the Pavilion of the African Diaspora, which is a pavilion conceived as much as an installation itself as a performance space as well. The idea of it is based on the conch shell and the ability of the conch shell to call people together, and this is speaking to the people of the African diaspora, the over 40 million of them living all around the world, and it's saying, come together. And there have been some amazing and will be some amazing performances in this space over the month of the Biennale. The space really comes alive with a beautiful stage, and we have musicians and we have performances, we have talks and panel discussions. The range is considerable, from really serious subjects being considered to people coming here to have a great time.
You start to get some very important conversations about design, making things better, improving people's lives, making the world a better place.
What we're doing here is not just talking from London to a load of people, those people are talking to each other, and that's absolutely crucial to what we're doing.
This word designer, I think it's become a bit of a problematic word, because we say designer handbags and we say designer shoes and we say designer hotels, and designer sort of just come to mean kind of cool or good. But actually everything's designed. Sewage systems are designed, and tax systems are designed, and weapons are designed. Everything's designed. So we need to take responsibility as designers for every single part of this network that we've woven around the planet.
It is about facilitating a kind of borderless exchange between countries and cities and territories.
It is about bringing people together from all kinds of different parts of the world. They come from different communities, they have different religions, they have very different beliefs, but somehow or other this conversation through design levels the playing field.
People connect not just into one place, but a huge network, rather like in the medal that you can see those all those little shapes joined together. We wanted a medal this year that would last for many years. We wanted it really to speak to what the ideas and aims for the Biennale are, and so the medal itself is a series of multiple tiny spheres connecting, joined together. Each one is individual. They're all very, very similar, but they're not identical. And of course, the idea is that we're all in many worlds. We have our own worlds, but those worlds connect, and when they connect, they make a whole. It's very strong. It's a very simple idea, but it's made a really beautiful medal, which I think says exactly what we wanted to say for the Biennale.
In about half an hour we're going to have the medal ceremony where we present medals to 4 countries, cities or territories for the most wonderful evening of celebration, what I call the Biennale Finale, and it will be a joyous end to what has been a fantastic Biennale. Good evening everyone and welcome to the finale of the Biennale. Be looking forward to seeing that.